Hello, everybody. Welcome to Zone Defense. Be sure to follow us on Spotify at Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Zone Defense Podcast. And be sure to ring that bell to get post notifications. Be sure to also drop a comment down below as well and let us know your thoughts on today's topic. Today, I'm making my triumphant return to the podcast, and Roman and Chris and I will be diving into our weekly pick'em for Week 6 of the NFL season. How's it going, guys?
It's going really well. Drew, really good to have you back, man. You know, we really missed you. I took an even further commanding lead of the picks while you were gone, and it feels really good to have you back, though.
I couldn't agree more.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. It's good to be back. Chris, how would you jump into the news and notes for this week?
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot going on this week. I mean, first off, obviously, the elephant in the room is the COVID schedule shakeup as we have it here. You know, a lot of games down the line, a lot of buys being moved around. I believe the Chargers were kind of switched onto a bye this week. That was one of the big changes going in. And now the Jets and the Dolphins are playing each other, as well as Denver, New England got moved back a week because of the New England concerns with COVID. But luckily, the Tennessee-Buffalo game, I mean, not for the Buffalo Bills, was luckily yesterday. So things aren't too bad on that regard, but a lot of changes coming down the road. We'll have it in the document because there's so many changes to illustrate them all here. It would probably take us about 10 minutes. So it's good to just kind of have them updated in the document, and we'll have that taken care of. But next up, a couple big running back notes. This just broke right before we jumped on the podcast. It's the Melvin Gordon DUI. I mean, it seemed like he was very upset on Twitter that the game got postponed. It almost seemed like maybe he just kind of made a mistake right after that and was unfortunately pulled over for driving under the influence. I believe it's going to be a multi-week suspension for him after that. That's just absolutely crazy to me that he would do that for sure. That's insane. And then the other big news is former Jets running back Le'Veon Bell was released after only being targeted one time this week, and he kind of took his frustrations out to Twitter. And it looks like that's what kind of was the nail in the coffin for his relationship with Adam Gase and the New York Jets. So they released him. A huge cap hit, a ton of dead cap for the Jets, but they didn't really seem to care. And Lev is obviously happy he's going to have a new destination. What will be your Le'Veon Bell going to a different team?
I think there's a lot of teams that could potentially, pick him up. I know that, many are looking for a running back. The Jets were trying to trade him, obviously, but they couldn't get any good offers. So I guess the only thing they could do was to release him. And we knew that Le'Veon Bell had a strained relationship with Gase and the Jets organization. So this seemed inevitable, but I do think he'll get swooped up right away and should be fantasy relevant, I believe.
Yeah, I think Lev Bell. I think he should just come home. He went to Michigan State, obviously. Let's just get him back in the Lions. It's not like we have enough running backs already. I mean, I think we should just pay him maybe $28 million a year. And just be like, hey, just give him a blank check. Say, hey, Lev, come home, be on the Lions. No, in all seriousness, I think he's going to be on a good team. I think, Chris, you mentioned Kansas City in our group chat last night. Maybe they make a run at him. I don't really see that happening because they do have Clyde. But I don't know, maybe a team like Houston who's desperate, maybe they just give him a contract and say, hey, just come on. I mean, he's either going to end up on a team that's super desperate or a team that's trying to added some more pieces for a deep playoff run. So I don't really know who I really want him to be on. Maybe Arizona, maybe that they upset.
Yeah,
that'd be exciting. I don't know. And in terms of the Melvin Gordon DUI, I mean, it's just another big loss for Denver. I mean, obviously, we're talking about the injuries week after week. They're a team that's literally in shambles, and maybe Melvin Gordon just had enough and made a mistake, like you said, Chris. But yeah.
Yeah, with both those things, yeah, Melvin, it is going to be a tough loss for them. They're a team that needs to win basically from here on out, and it's not going to happen. So this is going to be a team that's going to have a high pick next year, most likely. And then on Le'Veon Bell, I also have started liking the Arizona destination a lot more because actually the Pittsburgh running backs coach from when he was there is in Arizona right now. So that would be a good destination for him. And obviously Kenyon Drake clearly is not getting the job done. I think they are going to move on from him, and he is not part of their future. I don't even know if Le'Veon is, but they're a team that is definitely on a team that needs some semblance of a running game. And Chase Edmonds has provided it, but he's not one of those big backs. So not a guy you can give 15 to 20 touches to on a week. He's more of a guy that's a change of pace back. And clearly Drake isn't changing a pace of any offense, but really slowing it down. So maybe Bell coming in with his dual threat mentality, great pass catcher, is a great option for Kyler and co for this offense. So that would be a very interesting destination for me. Chicago, New England, Pittsburgh, all destinations I could see him going
The
to.
Giants.
Los Angeles.
Those are some outlier possibilities for sure. Both the Rams and the Chargers would be potential destinations for him with an injury or something. I mean, the Eckler injury, if the Chargers are looking to compete, that's a possibility as well. But definitely some suitors that are. He's definitely going to have plenty of options. He's definitely going to a contender. I'm excited to see which team it is. It's gonna be really good to watch for sure for him. Hopefully, turn his career around. But we also had some major injuries this weekend, mostly on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Dak Prescott. That's just an absolutely heartbreaking injury. Watching Tony Romo think it was a cramp injury while his ankle was not in the right spot. It was kind of crazy to me, but obviously a big downgrade for the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to lean on the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, which was obviously a good signing now looking back at it, but he's obviously a significant downgrade for me. How do you think the Cowboys' chances stack up now with Andy Dalton behind the helm?
I mean, obviously, you got to take a look at the division he's in. The NFC East is the worst division in football this year. So I do think they can get it done even with Andy Dalton as the quarterback. And I do think, they still have a good, solid roster around him. So if he just makes the plays, trying to get too fancy with it, I think they can still win the division.
Yeah, I want to touch on his injury real quick because I was watching the game live and he got hit, and then they're just like, I mean, it's not funny because it was sad. He was visibly upset because of when he was walking off the field, they were cheering for him. They had fans there in Dallas, and he was crying and lifted his fist up in the air. But it was kind of funny when Tony Romo was like, "Oh, it's just a cramp," and then they zoomed in on his leg, and his ankle was pointing this way. I felt like I was like, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think your foot should be pointed that direction on a right angle. I don't think that's just a cramp. And then CBS kept just showing it. I remember it reminded me of Gordon Hayward when he hurt his ankle a couple years ago on opening night for the NBA, and they showed it very briefly, and then they never showed it again. The Dak Prescott one, they just kept showing it, and I'm like, this is disgusting. Can we change this shot? Why do we have to keep showing this? But anyway, in terms of the Cowboys' chances, I think they're still the best team in this division. Their defense is in shambles, but I think Andy Dalton is the definition of an average quarterback, and the rest of the division is just awful. I mean, the Giants played probably their best game of football all year, and they still lost to the Cowboys last week. The Washington football team, who's playing quarterback, I don't know. And the Eagles are probably the one team that should maybe, but everyone gets injured. Carson Wentz has looked awful. I still think the Cowboys are probably the best team because I have faith in their offense around Andy Dalton, and I think their defense is going to figure something out. I mean, they have to. They're not terrible on paper. They just still don't have, for whatever reason, they can't find success because you can't give up 30-plus points to the Giants. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. I think what they do is they lean on Ezekiel Elliott a little bit more than they usually do. I think they're going to start ground and pounding a little bit more. Maybe that helps the defense out. I know Leighton Vander Esch is on his way back from the collarbone injury earlier in the year as well, so that should help them out. I think they will probably still win the division as well, but obviously Andy Dalton being there completely destroys any semblance of a chance of my Super Bowl pick of them righting the ship. They may win the division, but they have absolutely no chance of making deep playoff run with him. He's a significant downgrade from Dak. I don't think Andy Dalton's a very good quarterback. He does have the weapons to get it done, but he always has had that in his career, and I don't think
he looked good though. He looked good though against. I mean, you see those throws he had over 100 yards. I think he was 8 for 11, something like that. And
he can get hot. That's for sure. There's no denying it. The guy he makes an occasional good throw. I don't think he also makes a ton of mistakes and he's not mobile. I think it's a downgrade in every single way from Dak. I don't think there's one thing he does better on the football field, and they better pay Dak in the offseason. That's all I know because I think after seeing him, you're gonna wish you had Dak back, but I think that's gonna be the final straw and then pay.
I don't know, man. I don't know. There's some buzz in the local media that's saying the Lions are going to trade Matthew Stafford to the Cowboys, the Texas native. I don't know, man. It might happen.
Let's go into some more injuries. On that note, Deontay Johnson exited the game for the second time of the year with the back injury. I believe he's going to be okay. DJ Chark also exited early at some point in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. No update really on his status yet. AJ Green with his inevitable hamstring injury. Yeah, his career is looking like it's coming to an end quicker than people thought. I think he's pretty much done. Chandler Jones, this one was a big one. He tore his bicep. He's going to be out for the season. This is a huge loss for Arizona Cardinals defense. They're going to have to do something on the defensive end to replace him because he's clearly the best player on defense. One of the best defensive players in the entire league. Gets a ton of pressure on the quarterback. I don't know. I think their defense is really going to struggle from this, and it's a big time loss. But a couple other receiver injuries as well. Keenan Allen, back spasms. I think he's also going to be okay for week 6, but they have a bye, so they don't really. He should be fine with the back spasms. He'll be back for week 7. And then Julio Jones, kind of similar to AJ Green. When you get these hamstring injuries when you're over 30, it becomes tougher to come back from them. He re-aggravated it. I think his career is surprisingly going to come to an end quicker than people think. I think he's got only a couple more years left, and these hamstring injuries are going to further decrease the lifespan where he's effective. But any of these injuries you want to touch up on, Roman?
I just want to quickly note for AJ Green that he was caught on the sideline saying, quote, "trade me."
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that continues on from last season. Ultimately still wants to leave, and I do think he'll probably get that trade.
Yeah, I think Green's going to get traded. I think we're about to touch on it here with Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff out in Atlanta. I think Julio Jones is going to get traded here very, very soon. I think in terms of injury, I think the most notable one is obviously Chandler Jones, just because, as you mentioned, Chris, it really hurts an already weak Arizona defense. I know they won last week. I think they're 3-2 now, but there's still some serious question marks after a couple of disappointing weeks against the Lions and the Panthers. So their playoff hopes really take a hit there for Chandler Jones going down with that injury. However, I think the more intriguing injuries, just intriguing players, because I think they're going to be okay in terms of the injury, is definitely AJ Green and Julio Jones, because I think they are going to end up getting traded, maybe even cut here. Maybe not this season, but I would definitely look at them in the offseason as potential trade candidates. Because Green's already unhappy, and Julio is going to be out the door here very, very soon.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. I think Julio he did just get a contract recently. I don't know how much guaranteed money is in that, but definitely a chance that he is traded as well after the Dan Quinn and I don't remember his name, but the owner also getting fired at the same time.
Thomas Dimitroff, the GM.
Okay, yeah, Dimitroff, yeah. Both getting fired. I mean, maybe not the first coach that should have been fired this year, but definitely one of them. So I don't really want to linger on it too much. This is a team that clearly has disappointed. They're absolutely terrible, and Matt Ryan is another guy that needs to go. I'm sick of him, man. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I'd like to get your thoughts on how you feel about Matt Ryan, but I think he's
solid. I mean,
trending in the wrong direction for me as a quarterback.
He's okay, right? He's not the MVP. Everyone forgets he won an MVP. Everyone, he won an MVP, shockingly. He should have won a Super Bowl, right? But I mean, he's okay. I mean, I know he had a bad week last week, obviously, but he's still. I mean, their offense is good. Their problem is their defense. The defense is just absolutely falling apart. And I think Matt Ryan, he's going to end up somewhere else, and I think he's going to be a solid quarterback. I mean, I think as a Lions fan, I know I keep talking about the Lions here this week, but he is very much like Matthew Stafford. I think he's just a solid quarterback. He's not going to win you a Super Bowl on his own, but he can be a guy that gets you to the Super Bowl when you have a solid team around him. He's not going to lose you many games, and he's going to win you a game every now and then.
Yeah, I don't think Matt Ryan is his play has deserved him to get cut or blown up. But obviously, if you're gonna fire the coach and kind of blow up the whole team, it kind of starts with Matt Ryan. And I actually saw this morning. Mike Greenberg on Get Up, suggested that the Colts should trade for Matt Ryan and they'd be instant Super Bowl contenders. So that's very interesting to hear. Yeah, because he could thrive just with the right offense and kind of what you said about Julio. Calvin Ridley has played great. Those expectations are starting to flourish. So if they want to trade Julio and Matt Ryan, then now is the time, and they can just draft a quarterback in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, because they got a shot at the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, they're 0-5. Like you said, the defense looks bad. Honestly, I don't think their offense looks that great this year. I mean, Gurley's completely washed. I know he had a pretty good week last week, but he's slow. Their receivers are all banged up. I don't particularly think Matt Ryan's looked that good this year, but yeah, him going to the Colts would be very interesting because of how bad Phillip Rivers may be the worst quarterback in the NFL now, and that's not an over.
Yeah, he's not looked good. I was defending him, but
think I'd rather watch Dwayne Haskins play football right now at this point.
Oh,
Okay, I wouldn't go that far, but
Dude, you watch that throw he made this weekend? Where it was like, "Oh, here defense. Yeah, I'm just gonna pitch it out to you, and you can run. You can run in for 6." Yeah,
I mean, Josh Allen did the same thing last night, though. So I mean,
oh, jeez.
That's a good point. But at least he actually has some semblance of an arm. So yeah, I'm kind of done with watching Phillip Rivers and the Colts offense this year. This is a side note, news and notes, not related. Their offense, it's got to be the least most appetizing offense to watch in football this year, dude. It is so horrible to watch them just watch Phillip Rivers just. I feel like every time someone makes a catch on the Colts, it's a spectacular catch, diving to the ground. T.Y. Hilton coming down with some crazy grab. We got Mo Alley Cox going up and grabbing one with one hand. We got the running backs making great catches. That's just what Phillip Rivers does now. He can't make a throw over 5 yards anymore. This guy's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL at this point. He needs to retire. Hang it up.
we should have added Chris Rants on Phillip Rivers unpredictably into the news and notes section. I mean, but I honestly, though, I mean, the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl last year with Jimmy G. The Colts are still a Super Bowl contender, even with Phillip Rivers.
That cornerback playing like this.
That was your projected division winner too. Just want to put that out there.
I think they're still going to win the division.
My pick doesn't look any better, but you know.
Yeah,
they're a playoff team. With that defense, easily a playoff team.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's going to be Tennessee. It's going to be hard. They look really good. They look really, really good. Even with like half their team contracting the COVID-19 because they are dumb and had workouts when they weren't supposed to. But anyway, we don't have to get into that. Next thing, Chris.
Yeah, so Sam Darnold and Dwayne Haskins both kind of looking like they may be on the out of their respective teams. I mean, Sam Darnold, he's got the injury right now. Joe Flacco, he's back. Another mediocre quarterback of the week. He's taking over for Sam Darnold right now in terms of the shoulder injury. Darnold will be back at some point. Hopefully can make something happen. But, yeah, I would like to see him go somewhere else. I don't know how great of a quarterback he actually is, but the Jets aren't really giving him any chances to succeed. I mean, he looked a little bit better against Denver the other week. He looked like he actually had some competence, but it was also against Denver's pretty bad defense. So can't really say too much about that. But on Dwayne Haskins, apparently not been great in the film study room. Hasn't been really studying the other film on anything like that or his own playbook. That's the reason for Kyle Allen taking over as the starter and him kind of just being just left out in the dust. I expect him to get traded. I know they haven't had any suitors yet, but someone's going to make a move. Detroit, where are you at? We give up for him. I have no problem with that. This is a guy that still has some potential. I'm not fully giving up on him, but in quarterback situation, Kyle Allen, he's going to be the starter. He took kind of a weird hit last week, but he looks like he's going to be all right. It was really nice to see Alex Smith into the game, but I was absolutely so nervous watching him play football again, man. It was just – it's crazy that he came back and was able to complete some passes even, man, after that devastating leg injury. But all I could think about the entire time was that it's extremely scary. Obviously locked up comeback player of the year basically just by even being on the roster, which is crazy that he's even back 2 years after that injury, which almost required like life-saving mode pretty much. It's just absolutely insane that he's back and great for him. But every step he takes, I'm going to be really nervous of something crazy like that happening again because he was one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league beforehand. I thought he was an underrated quarterback, a guy that could get the job done. But any thoughts on either the Darnold Haskins trade rumors or the Washington football team quarterback situation right now?
I'll touch on both quickly. I was kind of telling you both earlier, but we saw Josh Rosen last season get traded for a second-round pick. So I think when you look at that aspect in terms of the market and teams who don't have a quarterback is very slim. So I do think Darnold and Haskins would be a little bit more valuable because they've shown they can have that upside. So I'm not surprised that Haskins hasn't had any suitors yet because they might be asking for too much. But there are some teams with some old quarterbacks that could potentially fill in their role, potentially Atlanta, but probably not, or New Orleans, or even Detroit. Those are all options out there. And then Alex Smith, like you said, Chris, I was very nervous for him. It couldn't have come at a worse time to return against the Rams defense. He got sacked by Darnold a couple of times. That really put some pressure on his leg, I assume. But at least he came out of it alive, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, with the Washington football room, I mean, obviously it's great that Alex Smith is back, but really I don't really care outside of that. I mean, Kyle Allen or Alex Smith. Alex Smith, I feel like maybe he has some more upside just because we've seen it in the past, but at the same time, he hasn't played football in 2 years and he's basically playing on one leg. And every time, like you said, Chris, every time he's playing, I'm just kind of like just wrap him in bubble wrap. I don't want him to hurt his leg again because I mean, there's that documentary, all this great stuff. He's such a great guy. You don't want to see him get hurt again. But in terms of an actual football perspective, I really just don't care that much because I don't think Washington is a good football team. And whether it's Kyle Allen, Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins, Johnny Manziel, I don't really care. But in terms of the trade rumors, though, I'm really interested in this because I think Sam Darnold, I mean, people forget just a couple years ago, he was the best quarterback prospect in a quarterback class that included Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, who am I forgetting? Baker Mayfield. He was the best quarterback prospect. And I know he's in the Jets, and I know everyone just loves to crap on the Jets and crap on Sam Darnold, but we saw with Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league now, easily, in my opinion. And he was with the Dolphins with Adam Gase, looked like he was awful. Then now he's with the Titans, and now he's looking amazing. I think Darnold could be the same thing. And his price is so low right now, reportedly, that you can get potential franchise quarterback with like a third or second round pick and maybe a player, maybe some cash, who knows? And I think any team would want to do that. I mean, I'm looking at the Lions, obviously, the Bears, all these different teams that need quarterbacks or need forwards of the future. Atlanta, you mentioned Roman, and I'd be more than happy to do that for Sam Darnold. Dwayne Haskins, I mean, I know he had 50 touchdowns for Ohio State a couple years ago. I know Roman, you're low on him. Chris, you're high on him. I think I'm kind of in between. If a team would just give up like a third or fourth round pick, just kind of see where it happens, I would be willing to do that. But we kind of see in the past these Ohio State quarterbacks, they have super great college careers, then they come into the NFL and it just doesn't really happen, or they become wide receivers like Terrell Pryor and Braxton Miller. So I think Ohio State quarterback success is more because of their system rather than the actual person. So that's why I would be much more willing to give up and like second round pick, maybe even a first round pick for Sam Darnold because I think he's that great of a player.
Yeah, obviously Darnold is the better of the two of them. I'm not crazy high on Haskins. I just think, like you said, he was different than those other Ohio State quarterbacks in regards where he was just absolutely dominant through the air in college. I think he still has a good arm. I think they kind of left him for dead in Washington. I mean, they obviously don't really want him there. They didn't build anything around him. He has one of the worst offensive lines in the league. Basically, no skill position players outside of Terry McLaurin and a little bit, to some extent, Antonio Gibson as well. But I think in the right system, Haskins, both quarterbacks honestly have a chance to turn their careers around. I think Haskins deserves a shot. I think Darnold definitely deserves a shot somewhere else. We're going to find out. Only time will tell. But pretty much all I want to say about that.
I do agree that Haskins, he deserves an opportunity. I mean, last year he didn't have an opportunity because he was behind Case Keenum. This year he doesn't have an opportunity, and that's not fair to me. And I do think Haskins should deserve opportunity because he really hasn't had anything to prove himself. All people do, including Ron Rivera, is just talk about how bad of a person, bad of a leader, and bad of a player he is. He deserves a shot. That's fair enough. But yeah, I think that's it for the news and notes. Do you guys want to jump into the pick'em now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the first matchup here was supposed to be Thursday Night Football, but now there is no Thursday Night Football this week because we had Tuesday Night Football last night. So this is now going to be on Sunday, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. It's kind of fitting or Monday. Yeah, you're right. My bad. The schedules changes so much. I don't even know anymore. But this is I think fitting that it's not on Thursday night because Thursday Night Football is reserved for your Titans, Jags, your Jags, Dolphins, your games that nobody cares about. This game deserves to be on a Monday because it is a prime time matchup between the Chiefs and the Bills. The Bills obviously looked awful last night against the Titans, and the Chiefs also did not look great against the Raiders. But they're both still leading their divisions, both two really good teams. And Chris, I'm curious, who do you have winning this game?
Oh, man, I really wanted to pick Buffalo if they would have won or at least kept it close. But they just looked so absolutely atrocious last week against the Titans. I'm not totally out on Buffalo or anything, but I'm going to go with Kansas City in this game. I think they, after kind of a fluky win by the Raiders, I think they bounce back in a big way this week.
I found it funny, Drew, when you said prime time because this is a Monday night prime time game at 5 p.m. So I'm interested in this game, though. I do think that Kansas City doesn't lose 2 in a row, although I do think Buffalo can put up a better fight. I'm going to go with Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm also going with Kansas City. It is definitely some recency bias because of how bad Buffalo looked last night. But I still think I would have picked Kansas City regardless. I will say, though, they haven't looked good this year for the most part. I mean, they looked really good against Baltimore. But other than that, I mean, they should have lost to Los Angeles. They haven't looked great. Their offense doesn't look as great as it was last year. It's still really good, though. Their defense, definitely some issues there. So I think it's going to be a really, really close game. I think it's going to be a really entertaining game, maybe one of the games of the week. I think it actually might be the game of the week, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably is.
But yeah, it's going to be really entertaining. The only game that I think could battle them for game of the week is this next matchup. That's what I'm talking about. Lions-Jags, I think maybe 5 people outside that don't live in Detroit or Jacksonville will be watching this game, unless you have maybe some fantasy people. But yeah, this is just a complete crap game. Let's just be honest. I mean, who cares? I mean, if I wasn't a Lions fan, I would not care about this game. But anyway, I intentionally made sure Roman would go first for this game because he is our biggest resident Lions fan. So who do you got, Roman? Lions or Jags?
Definitely the Lions. I think Jacksonville has not been as good as of recently. Minshew hasn't been up to his best, and I do think the Lions just have a better roster. I think so. They're going to go into Jacksonville with some fans there because Jacksonville still has fans, and they're going to win.
Yeah, I'm 3-1 picking against the Lions, so I'm going to continue to do it. Both these teams suck. Honestly, I don't even care. I don't even care if I lose this pick. I just want the Lions to lose this game, so I'm picking the team that I want to win. The Lions are terrible. Jacksonville's terrible. Have fun watching this game if you're a Lions fan because it's going to be, even if they win, it doesn't prove anything to me.
Okay, so the Lions, they're not okay. So there's a roadmap that they can make the playoffs.
I agree.
Okay? There's a roadmap to 9-7, maybe even 10-6. Gas. But there's a way, and it starts with this win at Jacksonville. This is a must win. Okay, if they lose this game, just quit. Just don't even play the rest of the season. Because if you can't beat Jacksonville, there's no dignity. There's no point in playing the rest of the season. Because Jacksonville, I know they were like the frisky team everybody was excited about after looking good for the first 2 weeks. They look atrocious. Gardner Minshew, I love the guy. Doesn't look great. Their defense already has lost their top players, and they were already garbage without them, or with them, I mean. So this is a must-win. However, Chris, I do agree. If Jacksonville loses this game, I think Matt Patricia has to be fired. I think Bob Quinn has to be fired. So honestly, as a Lions fan, it's a win-win, whether the Lions win or lose. But anyway, I could talk about that for the next 45 minutes, but we'll jump into the next matchup. Chris, Texans, Titans, 2 teams in 2 completely different places. Titans are on cloud 9, looking like one of the best teams in the NFL, despite the COVID-19 crisis and pandemic that happened in their facility. And the Texans coming off a win, but Bill O'Brien's no longer there, still kind of in shambles. So, Chris, who do you think is going to win this matchup?
Yeah, give me the Titans in this one. There's not really much else to it. They're home. They looked pretty good last week. Their defense definitely looked like it took a step up. They look refreshed after the long bye pretty much that they had, I guess, and they really beat up on the Buffalo Bills. Houston also looked a little better last week, but I don't think they're that great of a team personally, so I'm going to go with the Titans in this one, but I think it could be a pretty good game.
Yeah, Houston's coming off a nice win that I originally projected them to win last week, and I got that right. But Tennessee improved quite a bit, or impressed me as well, so I do think Tennessee will win this game. I'm not really going to give you a score prediction because it'll probably be close.
Yeah, it's going to be a close game. I think Houston looked a lot better. I'm a big believer in that when you fire your coach, you get a little jolt of energy like, hey, we want to prove you wrong, especially sounds like that locker room really disliked Bill O'Brien. So I could see Houston. I know, Roman, you're a resident Texans fan, quote unquote, but I think see Houston making some noise here, maybe making a little playoff push. They got some talent there. But I think Titans just hands down, they look like one of the best teams in the NFL. Ryan Tannehill, already mentioned it earlier, looks like a really good quarterback. Their defense looks really good. So I think Tennessee's going to win this game. But I think it's going to be close, and I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Houston can maybe squeak out a victory and maybe make a statement victory like, hey, we're not going away. Because Deshaun Watson, he's a really good player, obviously. But next up, we got Bengals, Colts. Colts coming off a tough loss to the Browns. Chris already mentioned Phillip Rivers does not look like a good quarterback. Bengals coming off of a tough loss to the Ravens, I believe. So who do you got? I think, Roman, who you got? Bengals or Colts?
The Bengals were absolutely manhandled by the Ravens last week. Joe Burrow couldn't do anything at all, but I do think he gets an easier matchup, and I do see him bounce back. He's a very hungry player, and I do think they're going to get the win today or this weekend.
Oh wait, you're taking the Bengals.
Whoa.
I'm very surprised you took the Bengals here. I'm going to go with the Colts in this one. Uh, Hopefully, trying to add onto my lead from Roman some more with this matchup. I could definitely see a possibility where the Bengals win, but the way they looked last week was horrendous. I mean, AJ Green is on the fritz on the way out, and it looks like that's part of the problem. So I'm gonna take the Colts in this one. I think they right the ship. I think get the run game going, and they win.
Yeah, like I'm in shock currently because the Colts, I mean, you talk about the Ravens, they have a good defense. The Colts might have an even better defense, and I think they're going to get destroyed again. I think the ineptitude of the Colts offense will keep this game close, but at the same time, it's not like Cincinnati has a good defense. I think Phillip Rivers might have a bounce back game, and I think the Colts are going to win relatively easily. But hey, I've been wrong before, so Rowan, maybe you can shock and with this crazy pick, quite frankly. But hey, we'll jump to the next game here. Falcons, Vikings, two teams that are kind of in shambles at the moment. I feel like I'm saying that about a lot of teams. They're just in shambles. But the Falcons, obviously, coming off the firing of Dan Quinn, they're still winless on the year. The Vikings kind of choked against the Seahawks last week. They only have one win on the year. So which team is going to kind of right the ship here this week? Chris?
In this one, this is a battle of teams that have disappointed this year. Minnesota coming off of an absolutely devastating loss, but I am going to take them in this matchup. I think the Falcons stink. Their defense is banged. I think even without Dalvin Cook, which was an injury that we definitely should have listed on our news and notes. Can't believe we forgot that one. I think Alexander Madison's a good enough running back, and Kirk Cousins a good enough quarterback to get the job done in this one.
I feel like I want to pick Atlanta because I feel like I've had some like blind loyalty to them, picking them in a couple of these games they lost. But I do think, like you said, Chris, regardless of whether Cook is on the field or not, the Vikings are going to win. And they probably should have won the game versus Seattle, but they couldn't come up with it. And this should be different.
Yeah, Minnesota. I mean, they're only got one win on the year, but I think they've actually looked pretty good for the most part. Aside from that one brutal loss to the Colts, and then their opening week loss to the Packers, I think Kirk Cousins actually looked really, really good. Alexander Madison proved that he can be a good running back. Even he proved that Minnesota will have a good running back even when Dalvin Cook is injured, which he always is. So I think it's going to be a pretty convincing win for the Vikings. Actually, I think it's going to be pretty close, actually, because like I said before, I believe that the team who loses their coach has some extra juice, and I think it's going to be a close game, but ultimately I think Minnesota is going to want to avenge their embarrassing loss on Sunday Night Football this past week. So next up, we got maybe the game that might contest with the Jacksonville Jaguars and Detroit Lions of most irrelevant game on the schedule, and that's the Washington football team and the New York Giants. The battle for the NFC East title, potentially, because that team, whoever wins that division is going to be at least maybe 5-11, 4-12. So really not much to say about these teams either, besides they're both awful. So Roman, who do you got?
I do think this is a potential trap game for Washington to win, but I'm going to pick the Giants. It'll be a very low-scoring game for sure.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm a trap game with teams that have combined one win. I can't believe I just heard that. I'm going with Washington this one. Kyle Allen, just an absolute superstar quarterback against that Giants defense. I think they just absolutely go nuclear this week in a 10-7 win, and they potentially tie it up with the Dallas Cowboys for first in the division. I had with 2 wins on the schedule, I think it's a possibility here they get it done.
No, I'm going with the Giants. I mean, honestly, I'll be honest. They didn't look awful against the Cowboys. I know Washington. They do have some injuries there, and their secondary isn't great. But they are probably a better defense than Dallas. But at the same time, I mean, I think the Giants are going to do enough. But to avoid falling into the trap that Roman thinks Washington has laid for them in this game. But yeah, it's going to be I'm not going to watch this game, quite frankly. I'll just see who wins and loses. It's not going to be an entertaining game. Anyway, let's jump into an actual kind of entertaining game. That's the Baltimore Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles lost to the Steelers last week. They're still kind of in shambles. The Ravens pulled off a very impressive, convincing win against the Bengals. However, Ravens, kind of like Kansas City, they still look kind of off. They don't look as good as maybe we kind of anticipated them looking headed into the year. And Eagles, their problems and issues are already well documented. But Chris, actually, I think Chris, it's your turn to start us off here. Who you got, Ravens or Eagles?
Man, I really want to pick the Eagles in this one, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with Baltimore. I think it's actually going to be a really good game. And if Philly's coming home, they're going to have some fans in the stadium, which is probably likely to boo them because that's usually what happens in Philly. But they looked a little better against Pittsburgh last week, I thought. I thought the defense really let them down. Chase Claypool had an absolutely monster game, one of the most impressive games by a receiver this season. But so that's why I'm going to take Baltimore in this one. I think it's going to be a good game, and I'm going to go Baltimore. I think Lamar has a pretty good week.
Yeah, I'm not going to say Philadelphia was super impressive last week against the Steelers, but they were surprisingly able to run the ball well. But I do think, like you said, Chris, Baltimore will win, and Wentz will look average at best.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I agree. I think it's going to be a closer game than maybe some people think. However, because Eagles have looked bad, they obviously won against San Francisco. They looked a little bit better last week, but I still think they're just not a good football team. But they're probably still going to win the NFC East because there's no good football team in the NFC East. But we'll start off this string of 3 games here that I don't know about you guys, but for me, they were probably the 3 hardest ones to pick in terms of a winner. We'll start with probably the highest profile matchup, and that's between the Browns and the Steelers in an actual good division, the AFC North. It's really a 3-horse race there, and these are the 2 teams who are trying to kind of overthrow the Ravens' stranglehold on that division. That's the Browns, who have looked really, really good after a brutal loss to the Ravens in Week 1, and the Steelers, who are still undefeated, but really haven't played too many teams yet, and this is definitely their toughest matchup so far on the young season. So, Roman, who you got, Browns or Steelers?
This will be a very tough game to pick, like you said, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh here, probably by a field goal. They were able to hold Philadelphia in check, but they're getting a better offense this week. Cleveland, really, really impressive. I do think they're going to be in the playoffs, but I do think Pittsburgh will squeak this out.
Man, this is easily the hardest game of the week to pick for me. I honestly don't even know who I'm going to pick right now. I'm still kind of talking myself into it. So, I mean, after Week 1, Cleveland has clearly been the more impressive team. They're coming off of a huge win against the Indianapolis Colts. You know what? I'm going to pick them in this game, I think. I think Cleveland gets the job done in Pittsburgh, coming off that great win. I think they got the momentum coming. Pittsburgh, I mean, I know, like I said before, Claypool looked really good, but I didn't really think their offense or defense looked, I mean, especially their defense looked overly impressive, and I think the Colts are a little bit better of a defense. So I think Cleveland has some success on the ground, like Roman said. Pittsburgh allows a little bit of production too. So we'll see, but I'm going with them.
So this might come back to haunt me, but so I am a Browns fan, right? I have said this before. I do like the Browns. I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan. I also want to state up right now that in our preseason prediction videos, I said the Browns are a playoff team, and I like them at 10-6, and I got mocked. I was laughed at. I was mocked. That you guys were like, "Oh no, they're not that good." Well, hey, look at me now. I look pretty good.
I don't remember that at all.
Go back to the tape. Go back to the tape. I was mocked. I was, yeah. But anyway, I picked the Browns last week. I was a little like, I don't know. They're going to beat the Colts. I picked them last week. They won. With all that being said, though, I'm picking the Steelers this week. I just feel like the Browns' luck is just going to run out. I don't want to say luck because they have looked really, really good. But I don't know. It's just hard to pick. I mean, the Steelers seem like they always have the Browns' hand there, and they're always able to be better than them and beat them. And I feel like maybe the Browns' kind of magic kind of runs out here this week, but I still think they're going to be easily a playoff team for sure. Next up, we got 2 surprising teams in the Bears and the Panthers. The Panthers won again last week, looking like maybe a dark horse playoff contender. Maybe they lost last week. Excuse me. Looking like a dark horse playoff team regardless, though. And then you got the Bears, who are still looking like beat the Buccaneers last week on Thursday Night Football, looking like a playoff team, maybe even going to win the division, possibly. Who knows? But yeah, who do you got here, Roman?
I think I confused you. I was just shaking my head when you were talking about the Bears being a contender because they're absolutely not.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know. Yeah, well, I thought they won, and then I was like, then you were shaking your head.
They both won, yeah.
Oh, they didn't win. Okay. Anyway,
they both won last week.
I thought so. I was getting thrown off. Anyway, because I was like, yeah, I picked them. Anyway, okay. Back on track here. Who does you got? Bears or Panthers?
Yeah, like you said, they're both surprise teams. Anyways, Chicago will probably get a spot in the division just because a 4-1 record is almost impossible to kind of screw that over. And Carolina, very surprising for what we projected them to be. I know Chris was the lowest on them for them being a potential #1 overall pick. I'm not ready to reserve a playoff spot for Carolina, though. If they keep it up, that's fair. This is a close game, I believe, and I will go with Carolina because I do think they have the better quarterback and more weapons on offense.
Oh, perfect. And I will go with Chicago in this one. I mean, I think this is going to be a good game. I'm excited to watch this one. I think Carolina's been surprising, but I'm also not willing to crown them as a playoff team. I think unlike Roman, who just trashes every team in the division other than the Lions, they're currently at 1-3 and clearly the worst team in the division.
I respect the Packers.
Chicago is 4-1. Maybe they haven't had the toughest schedule so far, but I don't think Carolina is an overly daunting matchup either. I think they get the 5-1 this week.
I agree. I'm with Roman and thinking the Bears are kind of a fake 4-1 kind of team. I don't think they're as good as their record states. However, you got to give them credit that they do find a way to win these games because, I mean, they shouldn't have beat the Lions. They beat the Lions. They probably shouldn't have beat Tampa Bay. They beat Tampa Bay. They just take advantage of that, and that's something the Lions, among other teams, can't do, and you got to give them credit for that. And I think they're going to get the job done again here against Carolina. Next up, this is a game that I also was just so conflicted on who to pick because we got Denver and New England, mainly because, and here, let me say it real quick, mainly because I don't know who's going to be the quarterback with New England. If I knew Cam Newton was for sure going to be starting, which it looks like he's most likely going to be starting, I'd easily going to pick New England. But because I don't really know, they did not look good with Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham. Their defense still looked good, though, against Kansas City. And then Denver, obviously, they're just in complete shambles. So going to be interesting to see who you guys pick. But, Chris, who you got?
Give me New England in this one. I think it's pretty straightforward. Drew Lock, who knows if he's going to be back this week. Melvin Gordon making a bonehead decision, driving under the influence as well. Also going to be without Noah Fant on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think Denver's going to keep this one particularly close. And I made the mistake of going against a Tom Brady / formerly Tom Brady team against. I picked Denver over the Buccaneers early in the year. I'm not making that mistake again here. I'm taking New England.
Yeah, I think regardless of who the Patriots have as quarterback, they're going to win. Whether it's, I do think it'll be Newton, but if they have Hoyer, potentially Stidham, that's fine. They should win this game.
Yeah, I ultimately chose the same thing. I'm not going to add too much. I just completely messed that up. I'm not going to add too much because I already kind of said it at the beginning. I think I'm a little worried if Cam Newton's not the starting quarterback. But I still think even if it's Brian Hoyer or Stidham, I still think they're going to win because they do have a good defense. But the main point of concern there right now for the Patriots is just getting on the field because obviously they couldn't play last week because of all the coronavirus and all that. But we'll jump into the next matchup, which we had some good matchups, and now we have some even better matchups because this is the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Rowan's already putting the Dolphins in because are they good? Are the Dolphins good? I don't know. They absolutely demolished the Niners last week. Maybe that's more a testament to how bad Jimmy G and the Niners are rather than how good the Dolphins are. But they're going to get back-to-back wins this week as long as they just show up to the field because the Jets are maybe the worst football team I've ever seen in my entire life. So anyone got anything to add? Is anyone picking the Jets? I don't think so. But if you have anything to add, feel free.
I am not going to pick the Jets in this one. I mean, you lose your best offensive player in Le'Veon Bell, cutting him, and for absolutely – I mean, there's reasons, but it doesn't make any sense. Just Adam Gase, he is maybe a high school coach at best. He has absolutely no talent. He should be fired. I think this is a game where he gets fired. Ryan Fitzmagic goes to work yet again, keeps the magic alive, throws 3 touchdown passes, and this is an absolute blowout. They win by 20 plus.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, easily. I think. I mean, when they beat the Niners by like 30 points, basically. So they should beat the Jets by like 50. Who knows? Is it gonna be 52-0? Is it gonna be like when Michigan plays like some college you've never ever heard of? Like maybe it's gonna be one of those games. Who knows? Anyway, jump into a real football game here. That's Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers versus Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is the Super Bowl that everybody wanted. They always wanted Packers, Patriots, Rodgers, Brady. We never got it. We probably never will get it, but we'll live with this Week 6 matchup between two really good teams. Buccaneers obviously coming off a disappointing loss to the Bears, where Brady didn't know what down it was. Rodgers and the Packers coming out of the bye, looking like maybe one of the best teams in the NFL. So, Roman, start us off here. Who you got, Tampa Bay or Green Bay?
This is going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go with Green Bay, who's been on a bye, so they have an extra week to prepare. I'm sure Tampa Bay, since they had a Thursday night game, also had some extra time to prepare for this game. But I do think Aaron Rodgers will come out with it, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be a really exciting, close game.
Yeah, I'm also very excited with this game. I'm going to go with the Packers as well. I think they get the job done, but the Buccaneers definitely could have Chris Godwin back this week, potentially Leonard Fournette as well. Mike Evans should be healthy this one. Vita Vea loss was something we didn't touch up on, but he's out for the season. That's a big loss for Tampa Bay, because I think they're going to struggle a little bit more against the run from here on out, and I think that's a bigger loss than people are making it out to be. So I'm going to take the Packers in this one.
Yeah, I mean, the Buccaneers, they're disciplined. I mean, they get penalized so much. And I mean, you can see Brady just livid on the sidelines all the time because they just get penalized all the time. And I think Green Bay is going to be able to capitalize on those opportunities. And I think they're going to win by 10 to 14 points. I don't think it's going to be super, super close. But yeah, we'll jump into the next game. A decent matchup between the Rams and the Niners. The Rams are looking like a really, really good team. They can probably contend with the Seahawks for the division title. The Niners are an absolute mess at the moment because of injuries and Jimmy Garoppolo, and just everything is going wrong there. But Chris, who you got, Rams or the 49ers?
Ooh. Oh man, this is a game that I'm thinking about going on a limb on again, but
do it.
I'm gonna pick the Rams. I've been the odd man out a couple times already this week with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Cleveland Browns, and Washington football team, and this could be a rough week for me for sure. So I'm gonna go with the Rams in this one and play it safe. I think they're gonna get the job done with Jimmy G looking like a tire fire, the defense getting absolutely exposed. I think the Niners are going to take another loss here, even though they are home.
The Rams are making me look really good because I predicted them to almost win the division at the beginning of the year, and I will go with the Rams once again. Like you said, Chris, it should be a very one-sided game.
Yeah, I think they're gonna win pretty convincingly. I know, Chris, you were confused who's to pick, but it's pretty easy for me. I think the Rams and their three-headed monster running attack and Jared Goff, they're gonna torch the Niners. I mean, if you get torched by the Dolphins, you're pretty much susceptible to getting torched by pretty much anybody. Pretty much anybody. So, last game here. I'm interested to see what you guys think about it because I have a pick. I know who's going to win. I have a feeling I know who's going to win this game, but I'm interested to see if you guys feel the same way. But we got the Cardinals and the Cowboys, two kind of relatively disappointing teams. The Cardinals started off really hot, then they got disappointing, and even last week they beat the Jets. Does that really even count? I mean, who cares? And then the Cowboys squeaked out a win last week, but obviously lost Dak Prescott. Their defense doesn't look good. People are questioning the coaching. So two kind of teams that really do need a win to maybe get their seasons a little bit back on track. So, Chris, who are you picking?
Give me the Cardinals in this one. If Dak was there, I've been a Dallas truther all year. I thought they were going to right the ship. I would have picked them in this game had he still been around. But with the Red Rifle, I know they're home. I think that they're going to lose this game, but I am also very excited to watch this game right after the Kansas City Buffalo game now on Monday night. I think this is going to be a really good doubleheader, and this is more like a Monday night game that I really want to watch for sure.
Yeah, this would be one of those games where Dallas would lose, especially with DeAndre Hopkins, because he always goes off on primetime games. And I'm really interested to watch this game, but I'm going to take the Red Rifle here, and what will be like a field goal game as well. I do think it'll be a quite interesting game. I'm interested to see how Andy Dalton does with a full week of practice as a starter, but I do think Dallas will win.
I'm trying to I'm picking the Cardinals here. I don't know why this is not working, but yeah, picking the Cardinals pretty much for every reason that Chris just said. I think the Cowboys have too many question marks. Their defense is not good, and I think the Cardinals are going to be able to kind of feast on that defense. Of course, they couldn't do it against a quote unquote bad defense in Detroit and Carolina. So I think it is going to be a close game. But I still think that maybe there's some growing pains with Andy Dalton, even though I do believe in him. I think he's going to eventually lead the Cowboys to the playoffs. But those are the picks for week 6. I think I did not pick. Yeah, I didn't go out on a limb on anybody. At least, I'm not the odd man out on any different pick 'em. So that means it's probably good for me. I'm probably going to make up some games here on Chris, hopefully, but who knows?
I hope
no. His insurmountable 4-game lead that has never been overcome in the history of sports. Anyway, all right. We'll jump into the fantasy faves here before we wrap things up for this episode. So who wants to start us off here with the fantasy picks?
I'll go ahead and go first this week, man. A guy that I clearly think is a great start this week, filling in for Dalvin Cook. It's Alexander Mattison, the running back for the Minnesota Vikings, taking on the tire fire defense in the Atlanta Falcons, team that can't stop the run, can't stop the pass. I think Mattison, he's a 3-down back. He went over 100 yards against Seattle, which is actually a surprisingly good run defense, even though they kind of got shredded last week. Definitely give me Mattison as a top 12 back this week. I think he's going to fill in nicely for Dalvin Cook. If Dalvin does end up missing, because he's still considered day-to-day. Obviously, you're not starting him if Dalvin's back, but if he's not, Mattison is basically fills in a similar role that Mike Davis did for Carolina. I think he's a very good fantasy play this week.
I like that. It's kind of like the similar relationship that with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. If one goes down, the other one's a clear RB1. That's the case here. So if you have him, definitely start him for sure.
Yeah, I was going to pick him, but I didn't want to be too basic, so I didn't pick him. But yeah, I mean, that's like he's the top waiver ad if he's still on waivers somehow for your in your leagues, which he is in some leagues, and he's a must start if you've been stashing him on your bench in hopes, quote unquote, in hopes, which kind of sounds weird because you wanted to get Dalvin Cook injured, but you added him and you stashed him for this sole purpose, so you definitely want to start him. But Roman, who's your pick?
It's Myles Gaskin, running back for the Dolphins. Easy matchup this week against the Jets. Even Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds both got in the end zone last week. So I do think Myles Gaskin has potential for a multi-touchdown game.
Yeah, the fact that Jordan Howard was inactive last week gives Myles Gaskin a little bit more of a ceiling than we've seen in prior weeks. He was basically just a flex option beforehand, but last week he was able to find the end zone on a 1-yard run. Really nice to see for a guy that's also involved in the passing game. He's getting plenty of volume. He's definitely an RB2 from here on out. And a guy that I've slept on for way too long, I got to wake up to him. He's not a bad running back at all by any stretch of the imagination. And the Jets are a bad defense and a bad team in general. I expect them to be up in this game. So this is a guy that I could see finding the end zone for back-to-back weeks and an RB2 for me.
Yeah, any player against the Jets is kind of a must start, it seems like, because the Jets just suck. But Gaskin was one of my backup options, so I really like him this week. I think he's going to have a really big week for sure. But for my pick, I'm going to ask you guys, do you guys know who the 9th best fantasy running back in terms of full PPR is at this moment in time? Just take a wild guess. Do you have any idea who the 9th best running back is?
Joe Mixon?
James Robinson.
Well, Chris, you must have read my notes because it is James Robinson. I thought I was going to just shock some people here. But yeah, it's James Robinson, which shocked me because he's currently an RB1. He's been an RB1 so far, top 10 running back. This was a guy he's been really good, but this was a guy that was not drafted at all and was just a free agent. No one added him. So it was really shocking to me, and I think he is a must start, one of my favorites for this week because he is going against the Lions, who are not a good football team, 29th against the running backs in terms of fantasy points this year. So I think he is definitely a must start for this week.
Yeah, you're making fun of me for being basic, but James Robinson, the sole reason I did not pick him is because I thought he was more of a chalk guy at this point. I mean, I get that seeing him up at RB9 is a little surprising, but the fact that he's so dominant this year has not surprised me at all after watching him play. He's a very talented running back, so much better than Leonard Fournette was for them. And every single way of the game, he is better than Leonard Fournette. So I think he continues it this week against the absolute atrocity of the Detroit Lions defense. And I think I expect them to be leading in this game for some points as well. So James Robinson may be a very good play for a couple touchdowns.
My first thought for that answer was actually James Robinson, but I wanted just to say Joe Mixon in case you wanted to pull a fast one on us. But if Chark sits, then I do think he'll get a lot of that workload. And against Detroit, he should have a couple touchdowns. I agree.
So I think we're doing the snake here. So I guess I go next for my next fantasy pick, or Chris, you want to start us off again?
Go for it, man.
All right. So I got David Montgomery against the worst team against the run in terms of fantasy points in the Carolina Panthers. He's a guy who he's currently 18th best running back in terms of PPR, but he had a big week last week. But outside of that, he's been very, very disappointing for fantasy managers for the most part. But I think he is a definitely must start for this week just because, again, they're going against Carolina. They don't stop the run well. I do believe they have a few injuries on the defensive front as well. So he's the must start for me. I know it's a little bit chalkier, but at the same time, I have not gone chalk historically for these fantasy picks, and it's bit me in the butt. I'm looking at you, Emmanuel Sanders, so I wanted to play a little bit safer here for the fantasy picks.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely like the pick for sure. It's definitely a guy that I was also considering as well. So not really a whole lot to add for me. Definitely a guy I would like to play as well.
Yeah, I agree. Both running backs in that game should be pretty viable. So I'll go with my next pick. Kind of going back into that week 1 options. I don't know if you're thinking of who I'm thinking. Adrian Peterson, anyone on the opposite side of the ball is James Robinson. I think he can get in the end zone. He scored against the Saints, so I do think he can get in the end zone, which would make it up for it. You're not going out of your way to get this guy, but if you have him on your bench, this will be like one of the few weeks you can start him and be happy with it because the Jacksonville Jaguars, like Detroit, can't stop the run, don't have a great defense. So this could be one of the very few weeks that he can be a good start for you. That's all I got to say.
Wow. You actually picked him. I was not expecting you to pick him there. Even while you were talking about it, I was kind of expecting another name or something. But
nope.
I mean, hey, man, I can't really sleep on it. Last time you got it right.
I did.
Yeah, he probably is on your waiver wire, to be honest. I don't want any part of this Detroit backfield still. It's still a 3-headed monster. And like I said before, since I think Jacksonville is going to win the game, I think we're going to see a little bit more DeAndre Swift and a little bit less Adrian Peterson. But if you guys are right about that, maybe he has a decent role this game.
I don't really think monster and Detroit backfield should be used in the same sentence. They're more like a 3-headed, like cute little puppy dog, more like that rather than a 3-headed monster. But yeah, I mean, honestly, coming out of a bye, I mean, this is the type of against a weak Jacksonville. This is the type of game you want a rookie, quote unquote, rookie star like DeAndre Swift to really emerge and have a big game. So if you do, absolutely need to start somebody because you just love the Lions out of this Lions backfield, I'd probably lean towards a little more towards Swift. But Roman, you mentioned it there. He did have a touchdown against the Saints, and I have a feeling that Matt Patricia is not going to do anything smart, and not being smart would lead him to want to hand the ball off more to a aging running back rather than seeing what you have in your young rookie star. So, I mean, if you're in a pinch and you need to start Adrian Peterson, if you have Dalvin Cook on your team or something like that, maybe do something. That's when you would start him, but he's still a guy that I wouldn't be like, you need to start Adrian Peterson.
No, right, yeah, I agree.
He's a decent standard play. Not really a guy I love in PPR either. He doesn't have much upside. But standard play for this bye week, there's a lot of teams on bye, a lot of good running backs that you may have on your roster, and also a couple injuries as well. You may need to start him. So it's not you could do a little bit worse, I think, in that. But a player that I want to talk about is an extremely exciting player that I'm actually playing against Drew in a head-to-head matchup this week in fantasy. This is a guy I'm considering starting. He's not really a consensus starting option, but it's Mecole Hardman for me of the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Sammy Watkins went down with the hamstring injury. He's going to be out this week. Hardman, I think, has an opportunity to step into a role where he may get a little bit more volume, but he's always the guy that you can plug in your lineup and just absolutely pray for a big play. He's just as fast as Tyreek Hill, and a guy that I feel like defenses have been kind of ignoring. If he gets on the field a little bit more, which I fully expect him to take over Sammy Watkins' role more often and be on the field for basically all 3 wide receiver sets, basically the entire game, I think Hardman has some real big upside here, and a guy that I would love to get into my lineup against Drew, but I may not play him regardless. But I'm excited for him this week.
If Josh Norman is covering him, I do think he'll get like 2 or 3 touchdowns. It'll just be that kind of a game. We saw that play last night with Derrick Henry.
Threw him like a rag doll.
It was insane. So I do think Hardman has the potential for a good game, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City's a good offense. Buffalo historically is a good defense, but they haven't looked great this year. Yeah, I mean, they gave up 40-plus points to the Titans. So I think the Chiefs are going to have their way for the most part against this now weak Buffalo defense. And I think Hardman, like you said, there are injuries there. So Hardman's going to reap the benefits of that for sure. Overall, I think we had some solid fantasy picks there. Nothing too crazy for the most part. Anything final they want to add here as we head into week 6 before we finish this episode off?
No, that's pretty much it.
We definitely disagreed on a couple of these picks, so the gap should close quite a bit by
or open up a little bit more after Roman falls further behind me, as his 7-game deficit is most likely just too much to overcome with my supreme picks.
I can make that up. It's all right.
Okay.
No worries. No worries.
All right, so you have to come back next week now and see how this budding rivalry between Roman and Chris, whether Roman can make up his insurmountable 7-game deficit against Chris, and see what happens here. Even though I think it's impossible for you to make it up all in 1 week because
it'll be close.
You didn't differ too much. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Like I said just a second ago, we do these every week, so be sure you come back again next week and see our new NFL weekly picks for week 7. We also do a few NBA episodes, and we'll probably do some more NFL content episodes as the season rolls on as well. Be sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Spotify and Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and search us on Apple Podcasts. Also, be sure to drop a comment down below on today's topics, whether our fantasy picks were all off the wall. If you're still in shock that Roman picked the Bengals to beat the Super Bowl contending Colts, or even that Roman decided to go with the red rifle himself, Andy Dalton. Be sure to drop a comment there down below. That's it for this episode, and thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
See ya.